the screen PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, let's begin. David?
All right. Well, welcome to the West Virginia 21st Century Community Learning Center Bidders Conference. My name's David Lee and Sherry Swint. We're the two administrators, coordinators for the 21st Century program. And today we just want to give you kind of an overview of this year's grant application. Some of you have already applied for grants in the past, so you kind of know some of this, most of it. Some of you may be applying for the first time, so we want to make sure that we give you as much information as possible. And the current application that we have, you can find on our website. And feel free to contact us after this is over with if you have any questions. Okay. Sherry, you'll have to control the slides.
Working on it. There we go.
Okay. First of all, 21st CCLC money comes from Title IV, Part B of the Federal Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Roughly, West Virginia gets around 7.5 million a year, which covers all the grants, even the existing grants that have not been completed. 21st Century grants may not be less than $50,000. And if you're applying and you're only applying for one site, your grant maximum is $110,000. If you're applying for two or more sites, you can receive up to $220,000. Now, the fourth and fifth year, there's a decreasing in funding that takes place. For example, in the fourth year, if you had a $220,000 grant, you would be receiving $176,000. And the fifth year, you would be receiving $154,000. Okay, next slide. The U.S. Department of Ed has three broad goals that's addressed in your grant. First is to provide opportunities for academic enrichment, which includes tutorial services, homework help of this nature. And that's particularly for low attending, low performing schools to meet those challenges to meet those state academic achievements. And homework help and tutorial services are very important in the 21st Century grant. The second goal is to have family engagement or family opportunities. And this is try to get families involved, parents, grandparents, guardians, whatever it may be, in the educational process of their children that are attending 21st Century grant. Also, one of the things that that's a part of the 21st Century grant is the family engagements, is opportunities for families, such as an example might be a time period set aside for healthy food choices, something of that nature. Financial obligations as far as how to keep a checkbook. Some families don't even know how to do that. So there's a lot of opportunities that you have for family engagement. Now, family engagement is not showing up at an activity that you have for the children and to say that's family engagement. With virtual this year, there's been a lot of sites that have actually had sessions where they have gone through the devices that they've used, gave webinars on that, and instruction on how to use it and how to help their child as far as academically. The other thing is a broad array of services would include STEM programs, STEAM programs, anything of that nature as far as engaging activities. It's not just homework help. It's not an extension of the school day. It's enrichment programs after the school day. For applications, both public and private organizations may apply for this 21st Century funding. Local LEA, local education agencies, nonprofits, for-profit organizations, institutions of higher education, city and county government agencies, all these faith-based institutions, all are eligible to submit application. It's just not an LEA. Now there's deadlines. That's really important. I'm going to slow down on this one because this is essential to make sure you know. Your intent to apply has to be in by May 3rd. You'll not receive access to the West Virginia Grant and Planning System, which is GPS, which you'll fill out all your information until you complete an attempt. And that has to be in by May 3rd. You need to inform your community of your intent to apply. And that you can submit that in Appendix D form. You need to let them know about what's about to take place as far as your application for your 21st Century Grant. Make the application available for public review, because that enables you to have a possibility of partnerships. Developing those partnerships are very important. The other date that's essential to know is that applications must be submitted with all approvals in the GPS system by 4 o'clock, not 4:01 or not 4:02, but 4 o'clock Friday, May 28th. And applications will not be accepted if they're submitted after that time. We've had some of those issues in the past, and we just had to put a deadline because we couldn't continue. Elizabeth McCoy takes care of our GPS, and she, we can't expect her at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night to start receiving those applications. And they will be submitted in their GPS system, which will give you, if you haven't used it before, we'll give you a webinar on that, on how to use GPS. Okay.
Any questions on that? We just want to be really clear and give you a chance to ask questions.
Especially the deadlines and the GPS. Any questions about that?
I mean, you can submit your intent to apply form tomorrow or today, and you'll receive access to the GPS sooner. You don't have to wait till the 3rd. You probably don't want to wait till the 3rd.
Okay. All right. The federal criteria requires applicants to primarily serve students from schools with low concentrated or low income students, and gives high priority points for that. It's not based on free and reduced lunch percentages. That's something of the past that had been a part, but it's based on those 40% or more of students considered in low socioeconomic status. We'll locate that with the direct certification information that we have access from as far as our resources. And so we'll have that information shortly put up for you. Okay. Priority points. As far as the application is concerned, you can receive a variety of priority points. For example, counties that haven't had a 21st Century Grant within the past 5 years could receive 4 points. Science, technology, STEM programs, academic enrichment, STEAM programs, you can receive 2 points. Now, let me stop for just a minute. When you submit what your STEM or STEAM part of your program is going to be, please make sure that you clarify what activities that you're going to be using as far as the STEM and STEAM program. Not just you're going to have STEM and STEAM or either one, but what you're going to be engaged in. CTE program, the Career Tech program, schools will receive 2 points if their middle school or high school students are involved in that. CTE is a great way, especially if you're going to be involved in high school, to be a part of a 21st Century program, because there's some activities that you can include that might not be available at the CTE program. So those are some of the things that we can hopefully work with here at the State Department through our CTE program here to assist you. 3 years of summer program that includes 5 weeks of summer programming for the same students, you receive 5 points. Summer programming can be extremely important, especially now since we've had COVID and the fact that academically the issues that we face, especially with our students who are having some difficulties academically, this could be a great opportunity in summer programs. And you would receive, like I said, 3 years of summer program, you receive 5 points. Only serving students attending comprehensive support will receive, that's CSI schools, will receive 10 points. Now, from the State Department, we have that information if you're a CSI school. I'm sure you know that, but we have that information, so we would actually take care of that. Yep, because we've not had direction on CSI and improvement schools, what we're going to do. That is something that we're waiting from the State Department to kind of see how that's going to go. And I'm not sure you're going to get that information this year either, because you didn't have the testing last year, so you wouldn't have that. You didn't have the summative test last year. So that's something that we have to look at. Does that make sense, Vicki? Okay.
We would probably use last year's, because those would be the current.
You don't have last year's.
We don't. It does make sense, but we don't have it from last year. It doesn't look like we'll have it from this year.
You won't.
And I think a lot of those things have changed. So will there be other criteria that you might consider to figure that out, is what I'm asking.
That's something that Sherry and I are going to have to sit down and talk about, because again, you're not going to have those state summative tests that you didn't have it last year, so you don't have that. So we'll either have to look at something to adjust that, or go back 2 years from there when we had our summative test.
Yeah,
which is probably what we'll do, is go back 2 years as far as the summative test was concerned.
Yeah, the CSI schools typically are 5 years program.
Okay.
Okay, right. Thank you.
And joint submission with a partner, 4 points. LEAs that have partnerships will receive 4 points also. Okay. One other thing about partnerships in schools, make sure that if you're not an LEA and you're a nonprofit, make sure that you have that good relationship with those schools, because basically that's very vital and important that you're working with those schools in coordination of what you're doing with your 21st century program. Okay. All right, Sherry, is this you?
Yes. Are there any other questions thus far? Okay. So as mentioned earlier, all applicants must enter their applications into the GPS system. The application narrative really describes a program that's available to any student in a minimum of 3 days a week for high school students and 4 days a week for elementary and middle. But if the middle is with the high school students, then 3 days of programming are the minimum. The federal guidelines are changing with this, and so we are going to be also tracking the hours, which just is a little more information for the future. Let's see if I can get this to work. Can't do everything. Oh, there we go. So in the GPS, you have this summary and abstract form. You're going to list the names of the sites that you will be serving, including any private schools, along with the days and times the programs will operate. You'll list the number of students from the school that you anticipate to serve annually, as well as the average daily attendance you expect to achieve. You also can put in here those who will have the school percentages of what we're calling the direct cert students that are eligible to receive federal assistance. We're doing that because so many of the counties are now county-wide free reduced lunch. So that's why we're changing it to actually finding the number of direct certified students that are able to receive federal assistance. And then of course, the number of adults and family members who will be part of that education program. Well, that's interesting. Again, you'll also institute a logic model, and that's really going to connect the needs that you find in your community to the goals and objectives that you will develop, and then how these activities will be done in order to meet those goals and objectives. And you'll also have a monitoring and evaluation plan in place. With the project logic model, we do have some information on our website to help you if you have questions about exactly what are outcomes, what are outputs, what are indicators. All that's available to you, and feel free to give us a call as well if you have a question on that. Having difficulty. I'm sorry, people. With the monitoring narrative, which is the second step, you would put in your logic model, and then you would have a monitoring narrative that will talk about your ability to actually analyze the data that you're going to collect to determine that you've met your outcomes and that you've met your objectives. With the monitoring narrative, you're going to have action steps that will determine what you will be doing and how you will assure that the monitoring results will actually be happening. You're going to want to indicate who it is that's going to be your evaluator. It doesn't have to be an evaluator where you pay that's outside, or an internal. It could be your project director that's going to be your evaluator, or it could be that you actually hire someone. Either way works for us. You just need to have that person designated. There are some federal and state requirements that you need to be aware of. First off, the federal government indicates that there's a program of principles of effectiveness that you want to be considering when you develop your plan. You want to identify that the data regarding the need has been assessed, how you're going to establish those performance objectives, and then how you're going to implement evidence-based best practices so that you can meet the needs of your students. You also want to ensure that we also have collection data that you'll put in for attendance, activities, and staff in the new 21st Century West Virginia app. You will also be required to implement and input information to the 21 APR, which is a federal data report that we have to do annually. There's a teacher survey, and the teacher survey identifies one of the national GEPRA measures that we have, which is about behavior and attendance for the students, and then also be active in doing an annual program director survey. So once you're done with your logic model, now's the time for the needs. The applicant should describe the needs of the population to be served by the after-school program. And you need to use a needs assessment both from that community but also from other multiple sources of data. Applicant must show how the proposed program will meet these needs by providing services and opportunities not currently available. You should show clear, specific, identified needs that will connect to those goals and objectives that you've developed in the logic model, and also how that need will be met through the activities that you propose. Also, please cite any needs assessment using APA citations. With program activities, again, you're talking about homework help and tutoring, but all kinds of enrichment activities. There's a list that's appropriate for after-school folks. You don't have to do all these, but you can do several. Let's talk a little bit about the program quality and implementation. So in that section, the after-school program should be different than a regular day school. You want to offer 2 or 3 hours of not what they've had every day, but something that's exciting, problem-based, get them moving around. So you're not talking about the skill and drill, you're talking about having them be hands-on, creative. Think of them as youth development programs. But in this section, you really want to discuss how you're going to retain and recruit students. How will the staff collaborate with the school day staff and administrators to identify how you can provide student tutoring that's individualized for that student so you can raise their academic achievements? You also want to do some positive youth development and how to determine the best needs of those students. You can talk about how the teachers will vary their approach to meet the individual needs of the students. And you also want to talk about how you're going to ensure equitable access and participation for anyone that may have special needs. And again, when you're providing services in the core academic areas, you want to really use scientifically based research that's been conducted and that's available in areas such as reading and math. 21st Century Community Learning Center should employ strategies based on research. That's the third principle of the effectiveness. Include any scientifically based research that provides evidence that the program or activities you're including will help the students meet academic needs. We also want you all to provide either a supper or supper and snack. And if you have questions on that, A lot of times your partners will provide that, either a nonprofit or even a LEA, a local school principal will step up and make that happen at the school. But you can have both a meal and a snack, or one or the other. Again, contact our Office of Nutrition if you want to do that or have more information. They're very helpful. Organizational capacity, if you are it provides you, what I think of organizational capacity as an opportunity for you to tell how great you are as an organization. You need to pursue our peer reviewers that you have the ability to successfully implement, administer, and evaluate a high quality, effective after-school program. So new applicants defined by an entity that has never received 21st century funding in the past. Reapplicants are those groups that have received 21st century funding either currently or previously. Everyone's supposed to explain their capacity to administer the grant successfully. New applicants should specifically describe how they're able to manage federal funds. If an applicant has an audit finding over the past 2 fiscal years, you are to describe those findings and talk about what you've done to remedy those findings. Applicant also will explain how this grant does not supplant after-school programs currently being operated by you or within that community where the 21st century site is planned. Reapplicants, this is your opportunity to talk about how successful your 21st century after-school programs have been. So feel free to discuss how you've managed your grant goals and objectives, how many students you've served, how many you've been able to hit the 30 days or more requirements. And then reapplicants should also talk about how you've increased your sustainability and partnerships because of the funding as well. Collaboration. West Virginia could not be providing everything that we provide to our communities without collaboration. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but it is very important and it's vital to the success of the after-school programs. And our 21st century programs are impressive in terms of the partnerships between the school and the nonprofits and the community-based organizations. It's been, quite frankly, amazing, I think. But collaboration should begin at the planning and design portion of the application, not just as an afterthought. Again, you need to describe if you've invited, how you've invited private schools and if they're going to be part of your community practice here for your 21st century program. You also need to describe other stakeholders and partnerships and what contributions that they would provide. We're also considering that it would actually be really wonderful if you would start putting a chart in here. It could be really effective where you list your partner, what they will provide, and then how they meet a specific objective, how that will connect to an objective of your grant. I think that will make it really easy for the peer reviewers to identify who your partners are and the quality that they're providing you. And if you have a co-applicant that's been identified, here's where you should talk about the capacity of that co-applicant and how they're going to be successful in their contribution to this partnership. Don't forget that we still want you to develop MOUs, Memorandum of Understandings, and they are to be uploaded in the related documents section of the GPS. And for every school that's going to be having participating students, you should have a letter from the principal there. Facility plan. Again, here's another opportunity to shine, to talk about the facility that you will be providing, that it's going to be warm and welcoming, that it's going to have enough space, that it will have different areas such as library or a playground or access to computers, cafeteria. You also want to require, if it's not a school site, you want to list the required agency inspections here. You must address also the transportation to and from the site and talk about how you're going to ensure that the students, if you are transporting them, will arrive safely. One of the big problems with after-school programming is if you don't have transportation, you're not really able to target those students that may need it the most. So please consider this factor carefully. We know transportation is expensive, but it is very important. Don't forget to put those transportation needs in your budget as well. And then also, you need to describe what emergency readiness plan you have and how it's going to be communicated to the staff, students, and parents. Program personnel. Here's where we ask you to add another chart. You don't have to put exactly who as terms of the person's name, but you're looking at actually the role and responsibilities. Who is going to be your program director? Program director should be assigned at least 10 hours a week to work on this project. Who's going to be your evaluator? It doesn't have to be only an evaluator. That evaluator can have more than one role. But we also want to know who's going to be your liaison. Who's going to, maybe every site coordinator is going to be the liaison to that school. But we want to know who it is that's going to work with the school on a regular basis to communicate what's happening after school with what's happening in the school day for the students. And again, you need to have at least one staff at each site certified in CPR and first aid training. You also want to describe the hiring of the staff and the vetting of volunteers, background checks, and also what's your ratio between the student and faculty. With your personal program personnel section 2, don't forget the training. There's training that's offered by the West Virginia Department of Education 21st Century, which includes a multi-state conference in the fall. That has been canceled. We will be doing something else this fall, and then we also do a spring event, minimum. However, you need to say that you will comply with these agreements in this section and that you will actually attend. But there's also a big section here that's talking about ongoing staff training for your own staff, for those teachers, for those community partners, for those site coordinators. You need to continue to improve their qualifications and their abilities as well. So don't forget that section. And then we come to sustainability. You need to describe here what's your strategic plan to be able to continue beyond the 5 years. You need to strengthen this partnership with parents and family involvement, as well as additional community partnerships. You also want to put in here your discussion of a program advisory council. You need to describe it, who's going to be a member, what's the frequency of the meetings, and then what methods will the council use to implement the sustainability strategy. This is your kind of board to help you succeed and be able to extend more beyond those 5 years. And then again, one of the major goals was developing family engagement in the child's education. So we have a whole section in the proposal for you to describe what your plans are to engage that family. It's very important, and the activities can be different. It's not always just coming and watching a child perform. We've seen some amazing things that have happened over this year of just doing family engagement virtually, working with the families at home, having calls, encouraging them to work with school teachers, just even doing training on how to connect to Schoology or some other county level system that they're using to communicate between the teachers and the students. We also are asking that you are looking at doing at least 3 engagement activities. Again, they can be delivered at home or at the center at elsewhere. Consider what those parents really need. Maybe they need first aid training to help them engage better with their child. Perhaps they need information on how to parent, how to engage kids by doing STEM together or cooking together. It can be wide. It depends on the needs of your parents and their students. And then you also in this area want to talk about how you are going to send information out and communicate with the parents as well. So don't forget to put 21st Century logo on everything that you can think of. Okay, I want to stop right here and ask questions before we go on to the budget section. So you're going to put in just 1 year of your budget in the GPS section. You want to be able to also, if you have any in-kind, we do not require in-kind, but if you have any in-kind services or any funding from elsewhere, go ahead and put it in the budget. There's a section for that as well. The budget narrative, again, a mathematical basis for all of your costs. You want to include, don't forget to include things such as travel to 21st century meetings, although right now we're looking at virtual meetings. Multi-state, again, will not be happening, so we probably will do some virtual programming. Educational opportunities for adults. If you want to send your staff or bring in someone to train your staff, that's allowable. Again, background checks. But again, some of the things, food, facilities, meaning actual, you can use rent, but we're talking purchase of facilities. That doesn't work. Vehicles or construction. Any capital expenses are not allowed. Indirect cost rate is allowed. You must use the restrictive rate, LEAs. That's usually established by the Department of Ed for you every year, and we should have that information. For others, nonprofits, if you have one, you can submit that with your intent to apply form. We're asking for that now. Allowable expenses. This is a federal grant, so you must meet all the federal requirements for allowable expenses. And there's more information in the RFP regarding those. But remember, your cost should be reasonable and necessary. You don't have to include as a match. They need to be educational in nature. And again, the cost principles from the federal government must be adhered to. Non-allowable, just a few things. We're not allowing you currently to collect program income. If you do that, then you'll report that income to us, and then we would take that off your grant award for that year. If you by chance want to negotiate with us, because you do plan to do that, we will have to seek a policy from the federal government to guide us. So right now we're not allowing that, but we could negotiate that if that's something you really feel is necessary. Program income, again, it talks about it's generated without prior approval from the Department of Ed, will be deducted. And again, we don't want you to have any sub-grants. Contracts, fine. Sub-grants, no. So the performance periods. We should receive funding from the federal government this summer, and we would allow you to start using that money July 1, and it goes to September 30th of 2022. Everything has to be spent by the end of September, and then you would liquidate it for be the next month to gather all of your expenses and submit in a reimbursement. Some of the things you need to be concerned about when it comes to the obligation for travel. If you're going to travel in October, it cannot go on the past year. All travel is taken, you have to seek reimbursement when it's taken. So if you travel and it's September 30th, you can seek reimbursement for that year. If it's October 1, even if you've spent on an airplane ticket and your airplane ticket is October 2, you cannot seek reimbursement on that airplane ticket. It has to be when you took that travel. That's different than a registration though. Supplanting, again, you cannot, federal funds cannot be used to supplant. It can supplement, but not supplant. So what does that mean? If you have money and you're paying someone currently for tutoring services and you're going to have a 21st century, and they're tutoring 2 days a week at one school, and when you have a 21st century program start, it's going to be at that same site and you're going to be offering tutoring, but that person cannot be paid by 21st century. It has to be paid by that current funds, because if you would switch that and you would use 21st century to pay for that tutor position, that's called supplanting. Financial management sections. Again, you need to be able to expend within federal awards according to state law and procedures. And here's a system, here's what we consider would be things that you should have in place for a strong fiscal organization. So that's just hopefully to help you. Equipment, again, you can purchase some equipment, non-tangible and non-expendable personal property having a useful life of more than 1 year is considered equipment, and the cost should be $5,000 or more. You need to make sure you keep track of those as well. Again, this is a reimbursement process, so you will submit drawdown requests after you spend the funding. So a lot of folks ask about audit. So if you have an indirect cost, that's where your audit expenses go. If you don't have an indirect cost, you have to have more than $750,000 in federal rewards in order to apply a portion of your audit costs directly to the grant. However, if you continued inability or unwillingness to have an audit conducted could result from withholding federal awards, suspending the federal awards, or terminating the federal awards. So we do want you to have an audit, or at least, and I think most of you all do. Oh, we've already discussed that. Okay. So West Virginia has a specific code. It's 12414, and it indicates that if you receive state funding of $50,000 or more, then you will need to submit a report of disbursement. That report should contain the grant award provided, the amount of the award, the receipt of the funds, expenditure of funds, and the time period reported on. These funds should be filed 2 years. They should be sent to our financial department. Some of the helpful links. Here's the Code of Federal Regulation, Part 200, which will talk about ways that you can use the funding for. EDGAR, and then the Uniform Guidance, it's our technical assistance for educational grantees. So that's actually has a portion that's provided from the federal government that will help us, and it could help you as well. The assurance section that's in the GPS, you can review that pretty much, and you just click at the bottom to say that you agree with this and that you will ensure that these things happen should you receive the grant funding. Okay, so at the end of your proposals RFP that we've submitted, there are a list of things that you can upload for you. The MOUs are something that you would supply, but you would upload those into the GPS. Any summary of evaluation studies or reports that you would like for the grant reviewers to look at, you may upload those as well. You need to, must upload your verification that you've had a consult with the private schools. Either they are or are not part of your partners, that's fine, but you need to consult with them. You need to verify that you've shared the information to the community as well as post the proposal out so folks can view that. And then again, if you any evidence of playing with a partner, especially that's required if you're going to submit jointly and try to get some priority points as well. Okay, that's it. Keep in mind that the bottom line is that the students need to serve the kids that need it the most, reach the kids that need to be reached. You need to focus on engaging students, learning, and parent engagement. And when you prepare your application, 21st century programs are developed and implemented as a partnership between schools, families, and communities. Okay, what questions do you have?
We got one. Millie had one I've already answered, but one I'm just got some clarity of what you're asking here, Millie. It's on the supplanting. Can they be 2 days by the current funds and an additional 2 days by the 21st century?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, you're talking about the current funds of.
Like Sherry was mentioning, if they have a 2-day tutor provided now by now too,
see.
they don't have
Okay.
enough for the 4
Yeah.
days. So could we,
Yeah.
supplement those 2 additional days?
Yeah, answer.
Thank you.
And if they partner with you, then now you're having 4 days and you're funding, you're not supplanting that fund, you're enhancing that program. So now you count it as 4 days.
Days by 21st century. Okay. All right. Oh, by the way, if you go to the website to look at the RFP, it's a little bit different because let me kind of go over that with you where to go. If you haven't been there before, you'll go to the West Virginia Department of Ed, you'll go to Federal Programs and Support, and underneath that, you'll go to Student Support and Wellbeing. That's our new office. And when you click that, you'll see the 21st Century Community Learning Centers, and that's where you'll get all your information. So just want to make sure if you go to the website, you know how to get to the RFP application.
Other questions? I'm showing on screen, this is our website. And you can see that there's an overview and application information, and that's where you find the proposal that you can download. And then there's frequently asked questions. If you would also go back, you'll see application resources, which is the middle button. And that's important for you to know because last year you'll have the top 3 scoring proposals are there for you to view. Information on how to access and use the GPS system. You can look at that webinar. Commonly asked questions, and then we have a whole bunch of other information for you that would be helpful, including the non-regulatory guidance tool that we mentioned earlier. Okay.
Hey, Sherry, this is Millie again. I have one more question. Has the rubric been updated to match the new format of the RFP?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
do not, and we do not have the rubric uploaded yet either.
Okay.
But we do have one. Yeah, I'll make a note to ask to get that uploaded.
Okay. I knew last year it didn't match the new format. It still matched like the 2019 format. I sent you that email, so I didn't know if it had been reformatted to match the new RFP for the peer reviewers.
Yeah, and we didn't post the rubric last year online, so you were probably looking at the year before.
No, it was actually the comments that I got back. It mentioned several times that A and B were not present in this section, and the RFP didn't ask for A and B in that section. However, the 2019 RFP asked for A and B in that section. So I guess I just assumed that maybe the rubric didn't get updated when the RFP had been reformatted last year. So I was just wondering if that had also been updated, I mean, for the peer reviewers and for the comments so that they all match just to help us out.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And you said it will be uploaded, the new rubric will be uploaded?
Yeah. And that's another good thing to use is once it is uploaded, once you've written your proposal, you want to review that rubric and make sure that you have the information in those sections that we're asking the peer reviewers to review.
Yeah, it's been very helpful.
Yeah. It allows them to easily find that information and be able to identify the quality of that much more easily
than going through the RP. Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Remaining questions? All right.